Hello and welcome to another episode of Casting Reflections on Black Mirror, the sub-series of casting views that takes an episode of Black Mirror and casts reflections on it. That's the intro, Dan. I think that's
That's
it.
the intro. I think we're now towards the end of series 3, and I think you've cracked it. I think that's
No,
it.
we're halfway through series 4, but yeah, I think
Oh, sorry. But yeah,
that's it. I've just got to remember it. I
yeah.
think that's it.
I think you nearly stuttered in the middle. When I was listening, I
I
thought
did.
he's got it. He's got it. He's got it. Oh no, he slipped a little bit.
And do you know why? Because I thought this is the introduction. That's what I was thinking during it. Anyway, how are you doing, Dan? You all right?
Yes, I am very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very good. Getting straight into it because I'm quite keen to know what you thought of this episode. It's series 4, episode 3, called Crocodile. As with the rest of series 4, debuted on Netflix on the 29th of December 2017, written by Charlie Brooker. Now, what I found interesting and what I quite liked about this is I'm only really going to name 3 characters, and I quite like the fact that the main characters were quite minimal in terms
Yeah.
of number. I don't know how you felt, but we've got Andrea Risborough as Mia, Andrew Gower as Rob, and Kieran Sonia Sawa as Shazia. So yeah, I mean, there's a couple of others, and actually, there is a character. I think I said to you on WhatsApp, didn't I? After I saw it, that there's someone who comes from my hometown in there, which I found
Oh, okay.
quite interesting. You know,
Yeah.
the detective, without any spoilers, right at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's from the hometown. So
Oh, good work.
yeah, so I think this episode gets a 10. Um, so what? Let's get straight into it. You're taking the summary on this one. So I normally have some notes and stuff, but I want to actually talk about it and then get your thoughts. So yeah, over to you.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, as you mentioned, it's based around characters called Mia and Rob, who appear to kind of meet in a nightclub because it starts off in a nightclub scene, which actually I wrote down, but is actually completely irrelevant to the rest of the story. So I'm not sure why I wrote it down. But they,
Yeah, I've got it written down as well.
it's only when I've just looked back at my notes, I was like, that nightclub had absolutely nothing to do with any of the story. But anyway, it shows that they
But it's
met
setting
in
the
like
scene.
set the scene. They're obviously two young people who have met at a nightclub. Then it cuts almost instantly to them being in a car driving through some snowy mountains, singing along, happy. And then there's an almighty thump as the car hits something and stops them in their tracks. They get out of the car. I think it's clear at this point, isn't it, that he is under the influence as well of something, whether that be in alcohol or some sort of
Yeah.
drugs. But I think he recognises that he's not fit to be driving at that stage through the snowy mountains. And I must say, if I was driving through snowy mountains, I'd be completely teetotal. There's no way I'd risk that.
Yeah, you see, because the interesting thing was I didn't, and it doesn't give you the impression, I think, initially, but I didn't think it was straight after the nightclub scene, but it clearly is
Yeah,
because of what transpired. And I just want to say, while we talk about it, I think it's set in Iceland, isn't it? But I thought it's lovely scenery. It's the
yeah,
first time I think I've said it's beautiful scenery in an episode of
yeah,
Black Mirror, but it was, yeah.
yeah. Beautiful scenery. Anyway, they get out of the car to see what they've hit, and it turns out to be a cyclist who is clearly dead upon impact. He's not still alive. There's no saving him, and they kind of go through the panic of what to do. They are in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I think Mia decides that she's going to try and ring someone. He stops her and kind of talks her into, actually, let's just hide this body. And then there's this scene where they kind of drag the body away, wrap it up in a sleeping bag full of rocks, and chuck it in the lake with the bike.
And just to interrupt, because that's when he says, I've got all the alcohol in me, I'm going to go to prison. And that's where it hits you because that or hit me because I thought it wasn't necessarily straight after. But yeah, he clearly just doesn't want to do it because he shouldn't be driving.
It's quite interesting, this bit, actually, because even if he wasn't drunk, I do think, I think everyone would say that if they were involved in like a hit like that, they would like to think that they would do the right thing and ring and get help and support and tell someone what happened or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a subconscious that the body just goes into survival mode, doesn't, or the mind goes into survival mode, and it is quite interesting actually what you would do in that situation.
It's something I was going to throw at you at the end, but yeah,
I was going to throw it at you, and then I felt a bit harsh throwing it at you, so I decided
Okay.
not to.
Well, as you brought it up already, I guess the thing for me is, and we could pick it up later, is they are in literally when you watch it, it's in the middle of nowhere. No one's seen it, so they would get away with it.
Yeah,
So it's a case of what do you do?
yeah. I think everyone would like to say that they would do the right thing, but I think there's a vast majority of people that wouldn't go in survival mode and then spend the rest of their lives regretting it. That decision, like you said, you obviously don't know until you're in that
Yeah,
situation what you would do.
yeah,
Just in case anyone's listening, I've never done that. That's never happened.
yeah.
But yeah, let's go on. Then it kind of cuts into the future, and Mia is now a lot more older. It shows her practicing a speech in front of a mirror, so she's obviously preparing for some sort of presentation. She's now leading the family life. She's got a husband who's not Rob, and that took me a while to figure out if that wasn't Rob, but it wasn't. It wasn't Rob, and she's now got a child. She's obviously some sort of professional, and she's preparing for a conference that she then drives off to. She says goodbye to her family and drives off into the city where she is staying at a hotel. It then cuts to Shazia, who is an insurance claims specialist, I think, or some sort of advisor, or kind of following up on accidents to kind of validate people's claims.
Yeah, like an
Um,
investigator, isn't she? But for purely for insurance company.
she turns up at some lady's house, and I thought this was quite funny because you can see that as the lady goes to get
Yes.
to the door,
Yeah,
she kind of puts a neck brace around their neck, and then she grabs a crutch that was leading up against the hallway, and then
yeah.
answers the door. And you don't find out what happens in that investigation, but I thought that was quite funny. But she's clearly faking it.
And that sets the scene for why people like her exist, right?
Yeah. Exactly. It then showed a clip of a pizza delivery truck, which was an automated pizza delivery truck, which is obviously an order thing, and someone comes out and collects a pizza. But it seems like it's driverless. It's done by robots, which I thought was really cool. I thought the
I
pizza
did. I
delivery
made a
truck,
note of it. I made a note of it and said, "Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah." Like you said, it's like there's multiple drawers on the side, and you go up to it, yeah, and it pops out the ready-made pizza, doesn't it?
yeah,
In the
yeah.
drawer. Perfect.
It's pretty awesome, and it plays a prominent part in the story. But we're kind of carry on. We then go back to Mia in the hotel room, and Rob shows up. Rob from her past, and I think it's clear that they haven't seen each other for a few years. I think they mentioned the word 2 years,
No, I
but
think it's actually 15 years later. So whether they haven't seen each other for that long, but it is
yeah,
15 years from.
I thought they'd mentioned they hadn't seen each other in a couple of years.
Right. Okay.
But
Okay.
I guess that bit's irrelevant. But they reunite in the hotel room. It's clear that he was an alcoholic at some point, but he is now clean and cleaning up his act. So he's gone through a bit of a process, and he is still struggling to process the accident and what they did. And it's kind of triggered by finding an article in the paper from his wife. Not his wife, not Rob's wife, the guy that they killed. His wife has written an article about the incident and has a picture of him on it, and he's sure it is. And he's riddled with guilt, and he kind of wants to come clean.
Because she also said she's never remarried because she's
Yeah.
still waiting for him to come home almost.
And I do think there is, and we could probably talk about that for hours, but I do think there's an element of not being able to get closure in that scenario. Mia then panics because she now realizes that actually, if they were to come clean about what happened, her family life would become, well, it'd be destroyed. She would obviously go to jail because she's now an accessory to murder. Whereas at the time, if they just reported it, it wouldn't have been the case. So it's almost like a bit of a role reversal now. He's trying to convince her that they should come clean, and she's trying to
Yeah.
convince him. But now we've got to carry on keeping it quiet. We promise, we promise, we promise. They get into a bit of a scuffle. She ends up knocking him onto the floor, and he cracks his head. And then she applies pressure, and then that ultimately kills him. So she has now effectively murdered someone, murdered Rob in the hotel room. And at that point, she looks outside the window and she sees a couple of things, doesn't she? She sees this automatic pizza van, which has knocked someone over and has crashed into a person. And then she sees someone in a room or office opposite. So she quickly kind of shuts her curtains and goes back in. It now cuts back to Shazia in her family home. And at this point, I'm beginning to think to myself, I have no idea how these two stories are going to link up and how it's going to come together. And I don't think it's clear to me at this point. But it cuts back to Shazia, who is at home with her husband, stroke boyfriend, and he has bought her a guinea pig as a pet. And there's a bit of a happy scene between them.
You know what? I hadn't even made a note of that, but I realised why that is vital
Yeah.
to say that now.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that line is not a throwaway line. We should remember that
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
for the
Stay
end.
stay with us, stay with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stay with us. There's a guinea pig in the insurance in Shazia's house. Cuts back to Mia back in the hotel room, and she begins to come up with a plan to hide the body. She orders room service, puts Rob's body under the room service trolley, and then takes him away, bundles him in the car, and then she kind of like tries to dispose of the body. But the bit I thought was interesting in that episode, one other thing she did, sorry, she ordered a pornographic film from the hotel telly, I guess to kind of try and provide herself a bit of an alibi as to what she was doing at that time.
Yeah, yeah, which I think is brilliant, watching porn. Yeah,
It's a weird choice of alibi. She could
yeah,
have just ordered
yeah.
a normal film, but
She
it's
could have what,
yeah.
yeah, Mission Impossible or something like that.
Yeah, it's but maybe it's to make the hotel receptions take notice and maybe like prick their eyes up or something. But yeah, sure, as a pornographic movie. So she's about to hide the body, and she takes a call from her husband. And this is a bit I thought was quite interesting because she has like a fairly normal phone call with her husband and
Yeah,
then her child, while there's a dead body sitting in the back of a car. And I thought that was almost like a little bit sadistic. And you kind
yeah,
of get at that
yeah,
point, actually, she's now quite a cold person that she can switch between those two realities so freely.
yeah, yeah.
She then dumps the body and goes back to the hotel. The next morning, she checks out the hotel. She drives off, but as she's driving off, she actually drives past Shazia, who is now, I guess, investigating the accident that's caused by the pizza delivery truck. Anything to add at that point? I realised I've done a lot of speaking at that point.
I just want to come back to something you said that I'd made a note of. I think it is brilliant, the flipping attitude between her and Rob. So as you said, she wanted to call the police when they did that murder. And anyway, we'll go on to it after. But I love the fact that then he's come back and he's so torn up by guilt, but she's now the one saying, "No, we can't." And I thought that was really well done, how
Yeah,
they flip or reverse the roles. Yeah,
yeah, no, really good. And it's also interesting as well because she obviously ends up killing Rob, but it's one of those things is was that an accident and then she was kind of relieved it happened, or whether it was something that in that moment she wanted it to happen because he did kind of fall back and crack his head, didn't
I think they made it look ambiguous, but no, she hugs him and she holds on to him for a long time. So I think she knew exactly what she was doing. I think she maybe just wanted the fool to kill him, but you could then argue it's an accident. But then her applying the pressure on his throat, then basically
yeah,
she can't get away with that, then can she?
yeah, yeah, agreed. Okay, so now we cut back to Shazia and we begin to get a bit more of a picture of what she does for a full-time job. And she drives to a man's house, and this is the man that has been hit by the pizza delivery van, and trying to work out the best way to kind of make a claim and for him to kind of end up with the right money. And there's a few interesting conversations in there as well, wasn't there? About I found it quite interesting when he said, "Oh, the CCTV wasn't working," and he saw it as a bad thing, and she goes, "No, actually, it's quite a good thing because that would be seen as negligence by the hotel or whatever it is." So I thought that was quite an interesting conversation between the two of them because he was almost like giving up on it, and she was like persistent. Actually, that's quite
Yeah,
good. We can go for it. And then she pulls out what looks like it's like a big box with like a really old school monitor on it. It looks quite old tech, but it's obviously quite tech, which I thought was an interesting way of doing that piece of equipment. And what that piece of equipment does is when he has a chip which is pinned into his head and they start talking through the memories, then replays not what he sees, what he remembers he sees. And I think that's quite important because I think she points out about perception and actually memory can be, you can sometimes remember something that doesn't happen, but it's kind of replaying what his memories are. And there's a few things that she does to kind of trick him into jog his memory. One was make him smell a beer because there was beer prominent that night.
They're near a brewery. Yeah.
Near a brewery, yeah, and also to play a song that was playing as well. And both those two things seem to kind of jog.
Question:
Uh,
did you recognise the song?
I think it's from a prior episode.
It's that song. It's only ever that song.
Is it?
You know the one from 50 Million Merits, the one that just keeps on going. It's that
Yeah.
song.
To be honest, it did click, but it was been used before. I couldn't tell you what episode it was in. I was wondering if it was in one of the White Christmas episodes, or but
Well, I think it was in that episode as well. That they were
yeah.
singing it at the karaoke. So if you ever hear a song and they sing a song, I think it's literally always that song.
So then he begins to have his memory jog and he talks through what happens. She begins to realize that there's no clear picture, but they can use to kind of claim fault. And I think what's the information she's trying to get is how fast that pizza van was going. Because I think, but it all hinges on that, on the insurance claim. Part of his memory, though, he sees a girl, and then she uses technology to kind of track down that girl and where she lives. So she decides that she's going to go to her house, play that. I think I've skipped ahead a little bit there. Goes back to Mia, and I think it just shows that she's now home and is left home alone while the dad and daughter are out. But then it goes back to the technology where she finds that Shazia finds that girl, and she begins to. She goes to that girl, doesn't she, in some sort of office, and does exactly the same exercise to her, gets her memory jogged. At that point, those memories reveal that there was a dentist who was standing up in his surgery from a window. So then Shazia thinks, right, there's some more memories to kind of tap into, and then Shazia goes to find the dentist to get his memories. So a bit of a wild goose chase trying to find the one memory that she's after, which is how fast that van was going when it hit the van.
Yeah, but I love it. It's like a detective story, isn't it? It's like that first witness, that the victim, well, the victim of the accident
Yeah,
saw the woman. She goes speak to the woman. The woman couldn't miss the vital bit, but she saw a flash in the window, so that must be somebody there. So it is like a proper detective story, isn't it?
don't you think it'd be a really cool job to have? Like I would love to do that. That
Yeah,
it
yeah,
looks pretty
yeah.
amazing.
Well, let's find out. Let's keep going and see if you would
Oh
like
yeah.
that job.
Well, all jobs have risks, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so she goes to the dentist and she starts plugging the dentist in. And at this point, the dentist reveals that he was doing something embarrassing. So he shows a little bit of reluctance about replaying his memories. What was he doing? It was embarrassing. He was taking a photo of someone in the hotel across the
Well,
road, wasn't he?
there was a naked man in a building, yeah, in the building across the road, and he was trying to take a photo of that man, wasn't he?
That's
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So that's what he's a little bit embarrassed. And Shazza says, "I don't really care. I've seen it all," which I'm sure she has. She does. She's not really bothered about that memory. She's bothered about the one memory that she wants, which is the
yeah.
speed of a van. She realizes that the dentist didn't see the van hit the person, so I think a bit deflated. And then she realizes that now this is where the two characters link. She realizes that from a dentist's memory, that Mia was actually standing in the hotel room at the window, looking out directly at the van. But because of the distance, she's a little bit concerned that she can't get a face match on that person. However, come the next scene, Shazzy is searching for that face and it shows up, Mia's profile, finds out that she lives 50 miles outside of town. And she gets permission from her husband. And I think that's the important bit, isn't she? She tells her husband exactly where she's going. And then she heads off 50 miles outside of Tool. She's incentivized by a bonus which will be paid to her if she can resolve this within 24 hours, which is why she's keen to kind of do it. Gets to Mia's house. Shazio has now turned up. First of all, Mia kind of claimed that she doesn't recall the accident. And I guess in her mind, she probably, of everything that had happened in the last 24 hours, this was probably the least important thing that had happened. And I guess it would have slipped her mind. So I
Exactly.
think I
Yeah.
think she naturally kind of just forgot about it by that point. And then Mia had a memory jog. And then she made the fatal mistake of saying, "Oh, actually, I did see the accident. I did see the man get hit." So at this point, Shazia knows that the memories are in her head.
She also says that in this world, it's a legal requirement for witnesses to cooperate, otherwise she's got to report it to the police. And that's then
Yeah.
when Mia changes her tune and says, "Okay, come in."
Mia, obviously, at this point, is panicking because she knows that if her memories are replayed, it's going to show her murdering Rob, and that obviously is in a world of pain. But this is a bit that's quite. I guess we'll kind of come on to that after the Shazia's reaction. So then Mia procrastinates a little bit before the thing's plugged in, and she actually goes into the loo and almost tries to retrain her memory, doesn't she? She tells herself
Exactly.
that she
Yeah.
saw something different. She didn't see
Yeah.
Rob, etc. etc. She almost tries to like train her brain. But have you ever told yourself not to think about something and how hard that
Yeah.
is?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Don't think about that upcoming deadline. That's all you think about for like the next.
Like you, I think I've got some issues with this tech anyway, but we'll come
Yeah.
on to that. Yeah.
Okay, so then Mia eventually gets plugged in. They use the same kind of memory joggers. They play the music. She sniffs a beer and she begins to remember. And at this point, Shazia does see what she wants. She sees the pizza van hit the person. So she's got her information, but then it begins to show the murder and what she does. When Shazia realizes what she's seen, she quickly tries to pack up and get out and into her car. At the time, they don't actually mention it, do they? But I think Shazia is almost trying to reassure Mia that she can't use that information. She can't use what she's seen, even though that's not what Mia's directly asking.
So I wonder if that was true or just her trying to get away, because she was saying if it's not related to the accident, I can't submit it. And I would love to know if that was true.
Yeah, it's similar to therapy today, isn't it? It's like counselors and therapists. They're not allowed to use the information they find out to kind of broadcast to the outside world or to anyone else. There's the strict confidentiality. But I think there's a line when someone is endangering themselves or risk of endangering themselves or others. I think I don't know where that line is actually, and I imagine it's similar to this.
Yeah, and I think it's because Shazia starts. You can tell she's clearly disturbed, and well, of course you would. You've just seen witnessed a murder, but she clearly wants to get out of there as quickly as possible, which then I'm sure doesn't make Mia think that she's telling the truth.
Yeah, and actually, you're right. If Shaz had kind of just slowed down and just like played it calm and ready, she probably could have got out and not raised suspicion, which is quite interesting. But I think Shazia probably had that realization. She's like, "Oh my god!" Sudden realization. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and the only person here is this person that's committed a murder in the last 24 hours. Mia prevents Shazia from leaving and ties her up in the garage. Mia is questioning her about what she knows, and she asks Shazia whether anyone knows where she is at that moment, and Shazia lies and says that no one knows. Mia then uses the memory device back on her, and she starts to replay those memories and finds out that Shazia is indeed lying. So at this point, Mia kills her, and then gets in the car and gets a sat nav back to Shazia's house, where then Mia sneaks into Shazia and her husband's house, sneaks around the house, and goes up to the bathroom where he's having a bath. She then violently kills him by clubbing him over the head. So now at this point, she's gone from not being a killer at all to killing 3 people in the space of
Yeah,
24
yeah.
hours, which is,
Or 3.5 if we add the guy at the start on the bike in the car. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right at the start, right at the start. So three and a
yeah,
half.
yeah, 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 3.5. She's obviously doing this to kind of cover her tracks because she knows how this memory technology works. And we know that Shaz is using it for insurance purposes, but we have to assume at this point that the police are also able to use it for investigations. So she's covering her tracks,
And she wore a mask as well, wasn't she? I think she
and
was
she wore a
masked up.
mask as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then she goes across the landing, and this is the bit where the whole episode turns for me. Is when she sees that child standing in
Yeah.
the cot.
She's taken her mask off at this point.
She's taken her mask off at this point, so she's almost revealed herself to the child, and the child is in a cot. So we're talking about under 2 years old. Obviously, can't communicate what the child can see, and then it kind of cuts away, and we don't actually know at this point what's happened.
She looks visibly upset though, doesn't she? That
She
this
does look
baby's
visibly,
seen her. Yeah.
yeah, she looks visibly upset, shocked, and I think there's a realization where she's like, at first, I thought it was a guilt thing, like, oh my god, I've just killed both your parents. I'm a mother myself. That's quite horrific what I've just done. So at first, I thought it was a realization thing, but it turns
No,
out
I
it wasn't
think
that. It
I said,
wasn't that at
maybe
all.
I've watched too much Black Mirror in one go, but I think I knew exactly, yeah, what she was going to do. Yeah,
So it cuts back to her heading towards her school play, and actually she's on the phone to her husband, and again having a very normal conversation with her husband about I'm going to be there on time, it'll be okay. And she turns up at the school play, visibly upset, shaken, and she begins to watch her children or child. No, it's her child, isn't it? Her child in a
yeah,
school play. It cuts back to Shazia's house or a police investigation, and it reveals that the baby has died. And actually, here as it reveals that the baby was actually blind, so the baby wouldn't have remembered seeing anything anyway. So not only was the baby innocent, the baby was no risk to her at
devastating, isn't
all
it? That,
in
I mean,
hindsight.
look, right, it's devastating anyway that she's killed a baby. Right, that's the horrific bit. But the fact then that in this world she didn't need to because the baby couldn't have seen
Yeah,
it, it's horrific. Yeah,
horrific. But the guinea pig is still alive, and the guinea pig is sitting in the cage. And we make a few assumptions, but the next scene is that the police turn up in a concert to arrest Mia, and that's where it ends. So it's quite clear at this point that the guinea pig's memories are now used, and the police have found out what's happened, and Mia is now arrested. The
yeah.
end.
Interesting episode, isn't it?
It it really is. It's
Well, I was going to say, firstly, let's look at the tech. I think they call it the recaller, and I actually love this. I think it's a great thing. But like you, I made a note that it's obviously really high tech. They put a little chip on the side of the head, and you can see someone's memories. But like you, it looks like it's a 1980s 10-inch TV screen, isn't it? It's tiny.
it reminded me of, I can't remember the word, but you know when kind of it used to measure heartbeats or oscillator or something like that, or something that measured sound or vibrations, and on a really kind of old screen. That's obviously a conscious choice to do it like that, because she could have just like had a laptop up and opened up like an application. Like they didn't need that box there, but it's. But I thought it actually probably added a little bit of interest and intrigue around this device.
We'll probably come back to that. The episode itself. So, what did you think about it? I think there's a lot of interesting things in here. So, firstly, there's the moral dilemma that they had at the start when Rob and Mia kill the cyclist. Then you've obviously got the 15 years later, and she's moved on clearly, but he hasn't. And then it's that one visit, that fateful visit. If he hadn't have visited her, none of this would have happened. What do you think then about those bits? So, firstly, at the start, like we said, killed the cyclist. What is your view on that in terms I think you said it. It's about the guilt that's got to stay with you, right? That's the thing with me. It's you can make a decision at the time, but what's going to happen to you a day later, a week later, and a month later?
And I think they did it quite well. And obviously, if someone goes missing in the mountains like that, it's probably going to take a long time to kind of work out what's happened. So it probably is a we'll easily get away with this. Like who's possibly going to search that lake? If someone's cycling in the mountains, you just assume the worst, wouldn't you? So it feels like something they can almost kind of get away with. But the trigger for Rob, and I think this would be the trigger for a lot of people, is when it becomes real and you see a loved one. And it might be, a kid that's just lost his dad, a wife that's just lost her husband, a father that's just lost their son, friends, family. As soon as you start seeing their life, I think that's the trigger. I'm not sure I would be able to cope with that bit. And at that point, I think you'd almost kind of sacrifice it, wouldn't you, and just say, actually, I'm going to have to hold my hand up to this and cop whatever punishment it is and just take it.
And how did you feel? And it's interesting. I'm throwing the questions at you. So if you'd have got in there first with the questions, it'd been the other way around. Did you then find it believable in terms of her then descent? She then has got a bigger kill count than a lot of villains in films, hasn't she? Because, like you said, she's then killed Rob, she's killed Shazia, she's killed Shazia's husband and kid. And I was thinking at that point, yes, she had a great life. She was in a massive house, she had a good job. I'm just thinking, could she really have done all that? I don't know.
I do think that there's a lot of people out there, even today, that's got a little bit of psycho in them, just waiting to be triggered. And like sometimes when you you hear about the terrible news that comes out of America where someone has gone in and into a school or something and done something so horrific. But up until that, these are not people that have just entered adulthood. Up until that day, they would have led like a fairly normal life. So I think a lot of people can have that trigger in them to kind of go a
It's a
bit
classic, isn't it?
psychopathic. Yeah.
On any of these things, it's the next door neighbor. Oh, they were a lovely person.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
they never would have known this. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's because when I was looking, originally it was supposed to be a male lead in Scotland, and then they changed it. And I think Charlie Brooker intentionally then changed it to a female to because he said we don't often see that kind of character in that role. And I think it purely went down to her desperation to what she would do to keep her family and not lose that. I guess this sounds really bad. I guess once she's killed Rob, I guess it's almost like she hasn't got a choice but to do. She set those course of events in motion, hasn't she?
I guess it's hard, isn't it? Because no one knows what they do in that situation. But if I was like to say to you or anyone, you're about to lose absolutely everything, what would you be willing to do? I think you'd be surprised at where the line is. I'm not saying everyone's going to be a murderer, but we don't know how we react in that desperate state, do we? Where she's built up a life for herself. She's obviously a successful businesswoman. Within seconds, she sees that flash before her eyes and all completely look like it's going to disappear, and she just gets into a desperate state, doesn't she? And
Yeah.
I guess you don't really know what people are capable of until it's all on the line.
Yeah. Do you know what I was thinking once that all started? I was actually thinking, I wonder what her husband would think when it comes out. I was actually thinking that because can you imagine for him and the boy, they then find out that, yeah, she was implicated in a murder 15 years ago and has just killed, she's basically killed an entire family.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's also devastating as well, isn't it? I mean, actually, sorry, and do you know all I've got in my head is I keep finding it funny that you mentioned about them getting the guinea pig because like I said, I hadn't even clocked that when, when I was originally watching it. About the tech though, part of me wishes they did a bit more with it. That's why I've kind of in my score I've reflected the fact that I don't think they did enough with it. But then you know what I was thinking today. I actually think I like the fact now that they didn't do a lot with it because it just makes it look so ordinary that it's just there.
I don't know if maybe it's just kind of it makes you feel like it's a lot closer to reality than it is. Like if that makes sense. If they did something so high tech, you might think, "Oh, we're millions of years away from that." But seeing on that old tech, I just wonder if it just made it a little bit more real, a bit
Yeah.
more obtainable. I guess is the word.
But I've got real issues with it, right? And firstly, my issue is that when you see her investigating those other claims and the other witnesses, she was having to remind them, she was having to give them the beer to smell, she was playing the music. So one, would the baby have remembered it? But two, the guinea pig, they can't ask the guinea pig, tell us what you saw in the last half an hour. Or
But
that is the only thing for me where I feel it's let down.
yeah, because that seemed a bit silly, and not just the guinea pig remembering. Because you don't know what a guinea pig's vision is like. It might be quite blurry.
You might only have a memory of 5 seconds.
Might have a memory of sight 5 seconds. But the other thing as well is, the size of the pin that they put in their head. If they put that
Yeah.
into a guinea pig, that'd go right through his brain. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I was left thinking. I was like, that thing wouldn't even fit on his brain. They'd have to get like a mini one to
Yeah.
kind of plug in. And it's
Or
that
maybe
bit
they've
obviously
got
was
animal version.
well, they should have told us that and not left me wondering.
But yeah, do you know? And that's the thing. When I looked, I think they said they did that intentionally. They left it there because it was a dark humor in the end of a quite a dark episode. But you know, I just thought, I think it soured the episode for me.
Do you know what they should have done? Is they should have had like a baby monitor or video or something like that on the cot, and her not twig that that was filming, and have that get her instead. So she's actually trying to bypass the technology that's in the episode, but she's caught out by like an everyday baby cam. I think that would have been a better ending.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the baby cam was live streaming to somebody else. Yeah,
Yeah, and like saved in the cloud or something like that, or and it'd been pretty good that she'd skipped all this future technology and she got caught out by the everyday technology that's just sitting on a
instead
cot
she got
looking at the
caught out by
baby.
a guinea pig. She got caught out by a
Yeah.
guinea pig in the end. I don't know. I think for me, that's what it's because it's. we've seen some pretty disturbing episodes, right? But I think for me, this is almost one of the worst. She's killed. Whether you could argue, Rob, did he deserve it because it was his fault and he stopped her from reporting it? But now, then she has killed three innocent people and a baby. Basically, one of those being a baby as well.
The
And
baby is just extreme, isn't it? The thought of murdering something
yeah,
that young and innocent, who's not even had a chance to experience the world, just
and the whole and the whole hypocrisy that she's trying to keep her son and her
yeah,
family.
yeah,
Do you
exactly.
see what I mean? And so she yeah. And going on to the tech, right? There's something really subtle, and I don't know if you saw it, which makes me also think. That we said the bit where she was trying to retrain her thoughts. For me, it's almost how reliable is this technology as well, because when she went to the dentist and she started doing his memories. He goes, oh, like the witness, the woman that she first interviewed, she goes over to the victim on the floor, doesn't she?
Yeah,
And he goes, she was wearing a lime jacket, and you see a woman come on screen with a green jacket, and that Shazzy said it was actually yellow. And then the jacket changed yellow because he was remembering it correctly.
yeah.
So she changed his memory. So what if I was, we know there are false memories. We know people. So what if you were to, like the police, what if you're in doing that with someone? What if you were to influence someone to think something that they didn't actually see?
But I guess
Or
that
do you
kind of
have to have seen it? Do you
I
have to have
guess
seen
that
it? I
kind
don't
of
know.
happens because you can jog someone's memory, can't you? And then you suddenly remember something in a different way. Like if someone tells you something happened, you're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that," and then all of a sudden it's now there, and you can remember it clearly. So I
Yeah.
guess there's that. But like you said, how realistically you could rely on that for things like crime and insurance claims, and how accurate
Yeah.
as it be? There's got to be like a percentage accuracy assigned for
Yeah.
technology, hasn't there?
I just thought that was a really interesting, and it's literally a fraction of a second. How can you rely either on what someone's telling you that they might have misremembered and have missed something important out, or that they've been coerced into thinking it slightly different? Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is with mind you, they would have seen where because she hid the body for Rob, so they would have in a memory been able to interrogate that. But I guess you could argue that maybe she's had horrible thoughts and that's not what she actually did.
Yeah.
Um,
I did think
yeah,
it's weird that
it's
this hotel has no CCTV in it as well. How she can just like
yeah.
push a body in a trolley out to the car park and no one picks up on it.
Okay, what else about this
Can we talk
program?
about the pizza? Can we talk about the pizza van as well?
Yeah,
Because
because this
I think that's
was
the best bit of tech in there.
there were oh yeah, oh, and also it was an Easter egg, which I didn't realize was an Easter egg, but you picked up on it.
Could I?
Or did you not? Or did I? Oh, maybe I misunderstood. When you WhatsApped me, you said the pizza van. It was actually apparently it was seen in the USS Callister episode, delivering a pizza to him when he was in his apartment. So when you messaged me the pizza van, that's what I thought you meant.
Oh yeah, I did mean that.
There you go.
When I think about it retrospectively, that's exactly what I meant. No, I didn't. I
But
didn't
yeah,
clock it
go
was the
on.
same
What about
pizza.
the pizza van?
Well, I think the pizza van is obviously quite cool because it starts introducing the whole concept of driverless driving
Yeah,
and delivery. And the reason why I was going to mention it is because sometimes I tell people about this and they don't realize it happens. And I don't know if me and you ever talked about it. But the concept of this robots delivering you food and drink and whatever actually happens. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but in Milton Keynes, where my
yes,
mum
yeah,
lives, they
yeah,
have like you can. It's like I guess it's like Uber. I guess certain shops and restaurants sign up to it, and you can order like a takeaway or order some stuff from Co-op. And there's these
yeah,
little white robots that drive around Milton Keynes all by themselves. They're probably like a big cooler box, aren't they?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and they go around Milton Keynes. And for people who don't know Milton Keynes is a fairly well designed city where there's a lot of bikeways and a lot of cycle networks. So it makes this quite a good place to do this exercise. But then the robot drives down the pathway. It kind of monitors what's around it and stops if there's a car coming and stops if there's people and then gets to the house and then you get a code on your app and then you can unlock the cooler box and then and take the food out. when I talk to a lot of people about that, they don't even realise that happens because they're not local to Milton Keynes. And I think it's phenomenal, but it's been going on for years. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, Google it because it is really cool.
I think they also sort of like call out for help when they get stuck, don't they? And
Yeah. It's quite funny. One time I was running a half marathon in Milton Keynes and we were running along this cycle network and we were going alongside the robot. So we were always, I had to overtake it to kind of like follow up. And it was just quite funny running past this cooler box on wheels going alongside me.
I just think it's brilliant that in this bleak episode, you and I are both so obsessed with the pizza delivery van.
Well, we're both pizza fans, not
Pizza
fans,
fans.
fans, not vans. And we're
Yeah,
both pizza fans. So this would be
yeah.
brilliant. And it would work.
Oh, I just wanted to link back to what I was saying about the decisions she made. When I was having a look at this, I found an article, right, and it's something in ethical philosophy that's called utilitarianism, right? And I'm not going to go into it, but if people know about it, I'm literally only going to give the headline. But it belongs to a family of normative ethical theories that prescribe actions that maximize happiness and well-being for the affected individuals. In other words, utilitarian ideas encourage actions that ensure the greatest good for the greatest number. And in this article, what they were saying is initially when they kill that cyclist, not reporting it, you could see a utilitarian could see that as the right decision because, okay, that person has lost his life and we got to assume he's possibly got a wife, family who are going to be devastated. But you've got two people there who have got potential prospects. Nobody would know about it. So for them at that time, that might have been the right action. But then the minute she then kills Rob, you've got another family who's been affected, another person dead, another family affected. Plus now her family is implicated. And then the minute she kills Shazia, do you see what I mean? So they're saying there's that argument about was that the right decision? And I think that's why I was trying to get at the start when I was asking about the effect of what she was doing.
Yeah.
Interesting way of looking at it, isn't it?
The thing is that dilemma at the beginning, if they were just like, if they were, obviously you can't because you're in the heat of the moment, but if they were able to take a step back and think to themselves, if we report this, what's actually the worst that's going to happen? It's a freak accident. They can't.
It was the
Obviously,
drinking. It's the
it's
drinking.
yeah. But by the time anyone got there, you could, they're in the middle of
Yeah,
nowhere.
yeah.
They didn't have to report it straight away. They could have sat on it for 12 hours and then reported it. Like it's you can't think logically about things like that. But there was a way of getting out that scenario, doing the right thing, and everyone being okay.
And just again, because you've got brought back to that point, I did love that scenery. That scenery was lovely. So
You wouldn't be cycling. I said about driving. I wouldn't be cycling in those
yeah,
conditions.
yeah, that felt odd. That felt odd. But also, it's the fact that yeah, there was no one else. That was the other coincidental thing that there was no one else that was coming in. It must have taken a good couple of hours for them to formulate that plan and
Yeah.
dispose of the body. Okay, so yeah, so really, in terms of we've discussed the real main dilemma, and it's horrible what she's done. We've discussed the tech. I guess before I go into Easter eggs, is there anything else you want to say about the episode itself?
No, no, no. I think we've spoken quite a bit about it.
Well, the only thing, and do you know what? I've deleted my notes now, but there was a debate about why it's called Crocodile. Some people are saying it's because she cried crocodile tears after each murder, but it's not. It's something about the initial screenplay Charlie Brooker had for it was about a woman who, as a youngster, saw a parent killed, and she grew up to be a fearful person. And it was like if you were on a something like a virtual reality trip going down a river cruise in a rainforest or on a river, that person might be worried that they were going to be attacked by a crocodile when everyone else was going to have a good time. So that's where that came from. Because I wondered why it was called that. Easter eggs. I've got one, two, three, four, five. I got three of them. I didn't get the other two. So the one we've already mentioned, so the pizza truck was in USS Callister. The one that is fairly obvious, well, when you know it, but the Sun was the school play. They were doing Bugsy Malone, weren't they? The episode previous was directed by Jodie Foster, who starred in Bugsy Malone, the film.
Yeah. I've never got that.
So the three I got was we've also mentioned this one. The 15 million credits song is sung pretty much throughout it. because it was linked to the accident. When she is in the hotel, there's two, and they all link to that same episode, 50 million credits. When she's searching through the TV before she buys the porn, she scrolls by Wraith Babes, which is one of the channels in that 50 million merits. And then also, I can't remember it. Oh, it's a bit where I think Shazia is going to speak to the guy on reception at the hotel, but he says the judge of Hotshot got caught with a rent boy, and Hotshot was the talent show in 15 million credits.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
those are the ones I've got. So I guess now the important bit is the score. So what are you giving Crocodile?
Do you know what? And I think you're going to say something very similar. If it wasn't for that guinea pig, I think this could have scored quite highly. So I think it had potential to be in the eights, but I'm going to put it down as a 7.2 for the guinea pig. If they'd gone with my ending, which I discussed this episode, and done it through a webcam or baby cam, I'd put it at 8.5. But because of the guinea pig, I'm going to go 7.2.
I've given it 7. Yeah, I've given it 7. But that's not to say it's not a bad score, right? And it's not a bad episode. I just think the ending, the very ending, I could see what he was going for, like that dark humorous twist, but for me it didn't work. And I think I would have liked a little bit more around the tech. I think a little bit more detective work and maybe showing some things around how people remembered things differently.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
think
Yeah.
around that.
The other thing I felt about this episode a little bit is I did think to myself, I wonder if I'd enjoyed this a lot more if it was earlier on. And because we've obviously watched Black Mirror a lot in quite a short amount of time, I wondered if this one just felt like a bit same to some of the others. And I did wonder if this was like middle of the first series, whether I would have thought more highly of it.
Maybe. I mean, by their own admission, it's based on the tech in an entire history of you, and that seems to be repeating, doesn't it? Always, it all
Yeah,
seems to be about memories. Whereas in that one, you you were the one in control of showing your memories, but in this one, you're at the mercy of the person
yeah,
seeing it any time. Possibly. Yeah, like I said, I really liked it, and I thought the actress who played Mia played it brilliantly. Really, it's quite understated, wasn't it? Calm person. It was quite a chilling performance, wasn't it?
yeah. And when you
In
think
that
back
sense.
to it, she probably didn't actually have that many lines because
Mm,
it was all a lot of it was done in silence, wasn't it? I
yeah,
don't remember actually talking that much apart from Shazia at the end.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's
And
just,
I love the twist up to that point. I mean, the whole thing with her doing to protect herself and her family, what she ultimately did. Yeah, and I mean, we've said it all. So yeah, like I said, 7 isn't a bad score, and it's a good episode, and I'll recommend watching it if you haven't. But yeah, I just think it's yeah, there's been better beforehand. So yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Well, anything else?
No, nothing for me.
Right. Before we go, I just want to shout out the guys over at Seismic Cinema because I know they do watch this and, and they do let us know sort of their thoughts on the episode. So hi to you guys. Next episode is series 4, episode 4, Hang the DJ, which again I saw on Netflix today. I know I've seen it, but again I'm struggling to remember the next 3 episodes. Like I said, ironically, I remember series 5, but not the next 3 episodes we're
Yeah.
going to do. So interesting. Do you remember that one?
This one, I think like you, I remember once I watch it. I when I looked at the title and the thumbnail on Netflix, it didn't jog my memory. Like if you were to plug a chip into me and recall that memory, even with a sniff of beer and playing that song, I'm not sure I'd remember. But
I'll tell you what though, no, if ever that song is played to us, all we're going to remember is everything about Black Mirror. That's drilled into my head now, that song.
yeah,
So anyway, catch next week's episode where we're going to discuss Hang the DJ.
2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, take what we've got, 'cause you need it. Don't make us